I actually want to go and ask some of my colleagues to shut up and sit down so that the minister can reply. Because I want to hear what the minister is going to say. Hi guys, welcome to the Are We OK podcast, the podcast that talks about politics and public policy in ways that are relevant to you. My name is Kian Ming, and with me
is Peter from Mr. Money.
Are we okay? Are you okay?
Aside from the fact of looking at Ringgit falling, I think I'm pretty okay this week.
Okay. Yeah, we'll come back to that. You guys, the team just went for a retreat somewhere in Pahang. And how was it? Is it chill and all that?
That trip was very okay.
Very okay. Okay, overly okay. I'm sure. Had a good time. Maybe had a few drinks here and there.
Yes. What about yourself? Are you okay this week?
I'm a bit tired. I just came back from a short trip in Singapore, a very productive trip. And I'll be flying off to India this evening for a conference, and then back to Malaysia, and then back to Singapore, and then back to Malaysia again. So busy week of traveling, but a bit tired, but still looking forward to talking more about different issues in this particular episode.
So before we go into talking about if Malaysia is actually okay or not,
yes,
I think it's good to highlight some of the comments from past week.
But before we go into that, just shout out to Zeus Coffee again, of course, good sponsors of ours, and definitely enjoy drinking Zeus Coffee.
So in my hand here, not in my hand, on the table, here is a hot CEO latte. For those of you who know, this has become our staple for quite a while now.
Yes.
Right. So thank you very much, Zeus. For those of you who are interested in getting yourself a cup of Zeus Coffee, do get the app. And guess what? This time round, we have also decided to throw in something interesting.
Okay, other promos, other freebies?
Yeah. For those of you guys who do not know, we actually do have a daily newsletter summary. Basically, it's a 3 minutes read to make you smarter. Instead of browsing through all the papers, what happens is that you just get a summary that you can read it all up in just 5 minutes every day.
What's this newsletter called?
So this newsletter is called The Coffee Break.
The coffee break. Okay.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so it fits just nice. And for this time, we are throwing out a lucky draw for those of you who are going to be subscribing to the coffee break. For the new subscriber, we are going to pick out 2 person where each of them will have a chance to win. Literally, they will win a 50 ringgit Zeus voucher.
Okay, how will they be selected, these 2 people?
So it will be randomly selected.
Okay, so lucky draw lah. Okay.
Lucky draw. Okay. So as long as you subscribe, you have a chance to win a 50 bucks Zeus voucher, which means at least 5 days of coffee lah, or for at least 4 days.
Okay. And the details will be given in the notes below.
That's right. So below in the description, we'll attach the code and the subscription link.
And since you mentioned subscribers, I think we're almost at 17,000 subscribers around there?
Yes. I think we are growing by thousands every few days.
Yeah. So the next target will be 20,000.
That's right. And once we hit the 20,000, let's do a live one.
Okay. And then
meet the people.
Yes. And also we'll reach the 20,000 mark. Getting there that time, maybe do another Zeus, maybe a Zeus promotion.
That's right. Yeah. Maybe you should get Zeus to sponsor the event itself.
Sure. And then there may be others also who want to come on board. More sponsors are always welcome.
That's right. Yeah.
So thanks a lot for all your support, and we'll continue to produce a good output on this channel.
All right, let's start with something encouraging. Yeah. So someone said this, the reason I always anticipated this podcast over others is due to the fact that from what I've heard, other podcasts tend to compare a lot with old government. But in this podcast, we tend to look at how to improve moving ahead. She believes that this is how we are supposed to be thinking, not keep thinking back of the old ways where corruption is a problem. Yeah, I think it's good that we actually highlight once again that the reason that we are doing this podcast is to help Malaysians to think better, to make better decisions. Because ultimately, when it comes to policies and politics or whatnot and economy, right, all of it affect our pockets at the end of the day.
Your pockets, our pockets.
Yeah, your pockets, our pockets as a business and so on. So we are glad to hear such a comment. And
we'll give more proactive and also positive and constructive, advice to people who are listening in, and then hopefully we also will learn some of this advice ourselves.
Yep, and we get to learn more and more of the ideas of what are people thinking behind the curtain where Kian Ming often revealed to us?
Yeah, because when I go behind the curtain, I also have to remind myself and learn as well.
It's a different hat, right?
Different
altogether?
hat, yes.
Yeah,
Many hats I
alright.
wear this. Yeah, interesting hat. So the any other comments?
Okay, there's one more that's quite interesting. Is this person asked this question? When we are talking about EV motorcycles, government seem to be pushing for that by giving a subsidy, 2,500 ringgit initiative. Yeah, but wouldn't having more motorcycles increase the rate of traffic accidents? Why not Malaysia focus on bringing in or either creating our own EV that is in the form like Pearl dual class kind where it's affordable to the masses? Do you think that there will be any plans moving ahead for Malaysia to go to that direction?
Yeah, so on the first point, yes, if let's say we have more bikes on the road and our driving patterns, both by motorcyclists and people who are driving cars, don't change, definitely the accident rate will go up lah. So how do we then change people's driving patterns and styles? I think that's probably a subject of another podcast, another topic. We probably need to get an expert to come in.
Maybe Anthony Look.
I think we need to get a sort of like road safety expert lah.
Right.
Who knows this kind of stuff, and maybe to get some behavioral psychologists or economists to come in together and see how we can change that
That
behavior.
would be interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then on the other part, yes, I do believe that there are companies in Malaysia, including the one you talked about, Perudua, that are exploring JVs with other partners to bring in a lower cost EV that is produced locally or assembled locally. And then I think there are also plans to bring in EVs at below 100,000 by a player or more than one player from China.
Right.
So that's still being discussed. And yes, that would definitely grow the EV ecosystem to the masses.
Yeah, I look forward for you to take us back to the curtain on that subject one day.
Yes, it'll be sooner rather than later because I think the discussions are quite serious lah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, next.
Okay, one more last one. Okay, because we have been talking about birth rate last episode, right? So some people actually say that like, hey, the fact that Singapore has so many good policies, right? But they are still the lowest birth rate country. And even in Sweden, there's paternity leave, which allows for father to work only 3 days a week, but yet it has not increased population. So this person say, so USA is the best way. It has the best immigration policy in the world. So what are your thoughts on this?
I would say that in the case of Singapore, the person is right. It's hard to change already ingrained behavior. This was one of the things that Lee Kuan Yew said he quote unquote regretted because and this is his opinion, not mine. He's been reported to have said this to allow too many women to go into universities, and because of that, their expectations were higher, and then they delay childbirth and all that. So that brought down the number of children in Singapore. But I will also say that if let's say those progressive policies were not put in place, I think Singapore's birth rate will be even lower than what it is now, perhaps to what Korea is right now. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, we spoke about this just now as well before the show. Singapore has actually pretty progressive migration policies, right? A number of not insignificant percentage of their population were actually Malaysians who have converted to Singapore citizens and went on to have babies and things like that.
Yes. Just to add on to that, recently I was looking at Instagram and our PMX recently met Anthony Tan.
Yes, from Grab, yeah.
Who this time round under the description say kelahiran Malaysia is no more Malaysian already, right?
Yes.
So
he's a Singapore citizen, but hats off to him. His company Grab still has a lot of workforce here in Malaysia, and in fact they have shifted some of their shared service or back office operations from Singapore to Malaysia. So they continue to be an important company in the Malaysian ecosystem.
That's right. Yeah. So I think ultimately when it comes to changing the minds of the people, it's a very tricky subject and it's a very big effort. So maybe one day we can probably invite some behavioral economists.
No, actually on this one,
or something like that.
If we can get either Talent Corp, the CEO, or maybe the Minister of Human Resources, Stephen Sim, to come and talk about these kinds of talent retention policies or sort of like brain circulation policies, I think that would be very great.
That would be great. Yeah. If you guys would like to hear from Stephen Sim,
or Talent Corp,
Talent Corp, write down in the comments below. Just write Stephen or Talent Corp, whatever, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So we know what to do next.
Yep. Okay, so we'll come back after this and talk about a very important topic, which is ringgit and cents, or rather the value of the ringgit that you talked about, or referred to just now. Be right back.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the second part of Are We Okay? We all know that ringgit has been falling, quite a lot, and definitely for myself, since I talk a lot about personal finance, a lot of people has been saying that maybe it's a good time that you actually divest a little bit and
Diversify.
Diversify, right? Diversify your investment in different sort of currency. And one of my favorite investments is in the US stock market. So today I got a Kang Tao for everyone.
Oh, Kang Tao means what? For those who understand.
Something good for everyone. Yeah, for those of you who are watching today, how would you like to have 1,000 ringgit extra end of this week, right?
Oh, I would like that, and as long as it's not a scam.
Yeah, it is not a scam. Jangan kena scam.
Okay,
right?
okay. Yes.
Now, how it works is that because Moomoo has just launched their app in Malaysia for trading.
MOO.
Yes,
okay.
MOO. We'll attach a link in the description below. And what happened is that if you deposit 8,000 ringgit, and you just leave it there before you even decide that you want to buy any stocks or anything like that, they will actually give you one free Apple stock.
Oh, okay. And that's worth how much now?
Close to 1,000 ringgit.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and maybe even worth more if, let's say, the ringgit continues to depreciate.
Yeah, that's right. And if Apple stock goes up, we all know that stock has a value of going up, right? And Apple is something that all of us are quite familiar with. And
I'm still waiting for their store at TRX to open, but they will come soon later this year.
Yeah, that's right. Now, not just that, but if let's say you find that 8,000 ringgit is a little bit too much, right? Yeah, you can always go for 500 ringgit, which they will give you 100 ringgit cash back as well.
Oh, okay.
So that's a 20% return just by putting your money there.
And what other value propositions? Moomoo is not sponsored yet, but what other value propositions that you can get from subscribing to this service?
Okay, I have to say one thing. Their app itself, it's fantastic when it comes to the ability to do research.
Okay.
Do you know that they have this thing, right, where you can discover the whole supply chain of a company just by, let's say you say, I want to understand how AI works. You tap into it, they will describe the whole supply chain from chip making to designing to what are the companies involved that are listed on the stock market.
Oh, wow, okay.
And by clicking into that, they will also show you can choose the tab that says news, then you can know what's the latest things that's happening.
Okay, so is this only for investing in the US market or other markets as well?
Apparently, they are going to slowly open up to invest in Malaysia market as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would say that when it comes to their availability of their tech support to do research, it is one of the strongest app that I've seen. Definitely, it's not as in-depth as like an independent research house like Seeking Alpha.
The one you have to pay a lot more for.
The one you have to pay. This one is like, it comes together. So it's pretty good. It gives you quite a lot of advantage. You guys can see from our show on Mr. Money TV, I think we have some videos about it. I think we are probably making another video about it. So yeah, stay tuned. Nonetheless, go and claim yourself a free Apple stock. So
okay, great. Yeah, so since we're talking about Apple and stocks and ringgit and all that, I just checked this morning. The ringgit is now at about 4.76 ringgit to $1. It hasn't further depreciated. But what from your perspective as a business owner and the people that you talk to, what are some of the negative consequences associated with the depreciating ringgit?
I think for one, because for Malaysia, most of our food is actually imported.
Quite a bit, yes.
Yeah. So for that itself, we are going to see some inflation in terms of food itself, like
most
coffee,
of the rice we eat, that's imported rice.
Coffee also is one thing.
Coffee,
right?
yes, definitely.
So I don't know when
especially your specialty Arabica beans from all different exotic locales.
That's right. Yeah. On the other hand, as a business as well, like for us, we do have some subscription that uses USD because tech products, right? So it means that it's gonna be more expensive as well.
Yeah, your economy subscriptions or your FT subscriptions.
That's right. Yeah. So all these also become more expensive.
Yeah, and as as somebody who belongs to an educational institution, we also have a lot of subscriptions that are priced in US dollars to different academic journals and things like that. So all businesses are negatively affected this way. It's not just food, but it's also services. And I think what is also something of concern is when you are not able to anticipate that means you suddenly find yourself, from 4.5 to suddenly 4.8, 4.9. I hope it won't go below 5. Then suddenly you have to increase. You have a lot of unanticipated increase in cost that you were not projecting for. Right?
Yeah,
So,
that's right. Yeah, and it's not something that you can control also, because it's too big a scale for you to control. I mean, you can do some hedging here and there under a business, but pretty much it's kind of like you're getting burned for something that is not really within your
control. And also,
control.
I think
Yeah.
because if let's say the depreciation happens in a very short period of time, you're not able to pass on the increased cost to your customers.
That's right.
Right, so like at tailors, for example, just because the ringgit goes down, you can't suddenly, I want to increase the school fees,
Yeah.
Right? So this is all priced in, and it's locked in for a year or so.
That's
So,
right. Even with the coffee, right? If I look at Arabica coffee beans kind, I'm not sure what beans Zeus use, but yeah, it's the same thing. They can't pass on immediately. Tomorrow suddenly increase by 10% just because of ringgit depreciate, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's causing a lot of inconvenience.
Okay, so let's go to the reasons. Why, what are some of the reasons that you and people that you've spoken to, what reasons do they attribute to the falling or the weakening of the ringgit?
Well, some people would have said that it's the government's fault, which definitely it's not really.
Yeah, we can
that
go
case,
into the details, but I mean,
But I think that's the not very smart answer.
When you say government's fault, what are they specifically referring to?
I think some people actually don't even know what they're talking about.
Okay.
They're just following the news and like following certain people who are trying to attack and say, government's fault. But I'm like, bro, so government fault, then what did they do?
Yeah.
But I think the issue now for most of the people, especially like for our channel, we also talked about it, mainly is because US interest rate remains high.
Yeah,
Number
so,
two, also...
so on that note, let's educate our listeners who may not know. So let's say in the US now, it's about 5.5% the federal funds rate. And they have something very liquid called the money market, the money market, pool, capital pool, where it's very easy for you to again put money in and get that kind of interest rate.
That's right.
Yeah. So if let's say you had holdings in that in Malaysian ringgit that you converted to US dollars, you would be able to have access to these kinds of interest rate differential kind of investment opportunities.
That's right. Instead of putting in Malaysia FD, which only give you about like 4%. Yeah.
Now less lah.
Yeah. Might as well you just put it there in a
money market fund.
money market fund in the US, which give you 5 something or either 6% with a better negotiation, right? So I think what happened is that people, especially large corporation with access to big funds and multimillionaires who
high net worth individuals,
high net worth individuals are gonna take advantage of that and just might as well put your money there, get better interest rate, and you secure the value of your money, right?
Sure. And even for let's say the government, asking, Malaysian GLCs and other, EPF or GLICs should bring money back into Malaysia to help shore up the ringgit. If let's say I was I was EPF or whoever, if let's say I sell down my overseas assets and then I bring it in to ringgit, does that really help that much? Number one. Number two, am I able to get a good price for my assets? Right?
That's right.
So, you may not be selling at the right time. The pricing also becomes an issue. So, that there may be some short-term measures that we can do, but let's not overreact. Let's hope that there's a better coordinated effort on the part of the government. And also, I think on the exchange, on the interest rate issue, there's also the other side, which is, yes, US interest rate is high. But at the same time, there have been different politicians who have come out, including the Prime Minister, come out to say, Bank Negara should not raise their rates. We should make sure our rates remain low. The next OPR, discussion session at the Monetary Policy Committee, politicians you usually chime in and say certain things. Just to let the listeners know, the markets actually look at these kinds of comments, right? So even if let's say Bank Negara decide to retain rates at what it is now, without taking into consideration what the politicians are saying, they are looking at inflationary pressures that have gone down, economic outlook, still not too crazy growth, so you don't need to again jack up interest rates to slow down the growth. Even if let's say they don't, they are not pressured politically, the markets would think that if let's say you don't raise the rate, it's because of political pressure. And because of that, they would want to price down the ringgit because they know or they think they know that you will not increase interest rates, because of political pressure.
Right. So they kind of look at it and then they say that, I think this is the issue that you're going to face, so I don't think you'll ever be able to do that, so might as well I just price it in first.
Yes, correct. And I want to make it clear, I'm not asking the government or not recommending to the government not to talk about the ringgit. Right? You should talk about the ringgit, in terms of the larger policy ecosystem. But what I'm saying is that you should not comment on what Bank Negara should or should not do with regards to the interest rate.
Yeah, actually that also gives people this impression that government is in control of it. Because the truth is actually BNM is operating in terms of when it comes to monetary policy, it's supposed to be independent, right? Yes. Yeah, although the government get to advise a little bit or give their comments, but it's not in such a way where they are supposed to be able to influence. Right?
So what I'm saying is that the government should not, the government, the most that it should do is, okay, if let's say Bank Negara decides to raise the OPR, from an economic perspective, you can make certain comments in terms of what the impact will be. Right? If let's say you decide to lower the OPR, then you can also give comment on what the economic impact would be. What you should not do, whether you're a minister, finance minister, prime minister, you should not say, I think that the Bank Negara should not raise interest rates. I think that is undermining the independence of Bank Negara. And we've seen episodes like this in the UK and other central banks where once the independence of the central bank is seen as being threatened, usually what will happen in the markets is that this means that the government will interfere. They will tolerate a higher inflation rate. That means that all these things will be priced in, and the currency would be under more threat than if let's say the central bank were to be seen as more independent.
Right. I see.
So actually, another point that maybe our listeners may not realize. I'm not sure whether you would be tuned into this as well, Peter. But one of the things that the markets look at, the fund managers, the people who monitor the Malaysian economic scene will look at, is to the degree that the government is capable of rolling out the subsidy targeting mechanism. Why is this important? It's because if let's say the government can do this well, it will be able to save some money, meaning slowly increase oil prices, have targeted subsidies to the B40, M40, and then you'll be able to have more fiscal space, meaning you spend less from your budget to do other things.
Yes.
And that kind of trajectory in terms of having better fiscal space and also a more solid fiscal foundation, the markets will see that as a positive sign.
Yes.
And they would say, hey, I think, government is moving in the right direction. I would support the ringgit.
That's right.
Or not sell down my ringgit.
That's right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So for those of you while watching this, right, especially if you do not have an idea of how the ringgit goes fall, maybe I'll just explain a little bit in detail. Basically, everything in the world works by supply and demand, right? Which is if more people want to buy something, the price goes higher. More people wants to sell it, then people want to buy it, the price goes down. So the issue of Malaysian ringgit dropping is that people are selling out Malaysian ringgit or either not buying Malaysian ringgit. And the reason for that it's happening, it all started with US increasing their interest rate. Then definitely there are a lot more other variable factors, but that's actually the basis of it, just in case you're wondering, right? So it also means that, like for example, part of the discussion that we had just now was, if let's say today I run a business in the US, although I'm a Malaysian, I have a sales arm in the US selling, let's say, cups, right? And when I receive the money in USD, if Malaysian ringgit is so low, I may not want to transfer the money back to Malaysian ringgit yet.
Or you don't want to transfer everything back, maybe
everything
just a portion.
Back yet.
Yeah, you still need to use that money to buy or restock your supplies and
That's
stuff
right.
like that. But you keep some overseas.
Yes, and at the same time, because there's also a higher interest rate there, if I bring it back, I maybe get about 3%. Yeah. But if I put it there, I get 6%. Right? So might as well I leave it there. So there are some of these kind of things that could happen.
Yeah.
So with this as a basis as well, and before we go back to the government side or whatever not, right? I think it's good to actually look at the question of what do you think actually
can be done, is it?
Can be done, right? At the policy level before you talk about communication and whatnot, right?
Sure. So I would say in terms of communications on that issue that I talked about just now, the independence of the central bank, right? That is actually a policy issue.
Okay.
Meaning to say that the communications or not wanting to undermine the independence of the central bank is actually a policy decision that the government needs to take. So that's number one. Number two, I think the government plans in terms of subsidy targeting and rationalization needs to be announced sooner or later. We have seen how the communications minister Fahmi Fadil has come out to say that, look, the Padu registration is not as high as what the government wants, so we will have to resort to other databases in order to get a more comprehensive data set of the B40 and M40 community as part and parcel of the rolling out of the subsidy reforms, subsidy targeting. So that the timeline needs to be announced sooner rather than later, so that the markets can anticipate this. And be able to, have more confidence in the economy.
That's right.
I think the third thing would be, today as we speak, this afternoon, the MITI minister is going to announce the investment figures, especially on FDI side, right? And for this, the faster some of these FDIs are realized, the greater the demand will be for the ringgit. Because all these, foreign funds will come in to buy machinery, pay staff, and things like that, right? So it'll take a little bit of time, maybe not immediately, but I think MITI and MIDA is doing a good job in terms of making sure that they are realized. So that could be one as well. And there would be other sort of like lower hanging fruit. So for example, having more tourists come to Malaysia. They spend a lot of money, that they convert whatever currency they have into ringgit as well. And, we need to do more. I think the tourism ministry may be having certain challenges now with the change in the DG. But related to tourism is the MM2H program, right? There are certain announcements made by the tourism minister at the end of December. But in terms of implementation of the new tiered system, we have not seen that really being announced in a formal way and not being implemented. So all these things, I think, needs to be part and parcel of a more concerted all-of-government approach that is needed to address some of these issues in the short term with regards to the ringgit weakness.
Yeah, I totally agree with it. I think this is actually a good thing because it also comes in form of a double-edged like two effects. Kill two birds with one stone, not double-edged sword. Kill two birds with one stone, right? Because aside from the fact that immediately when you make all these, let's say FDI, once you make the process smoother, like allowing them to get the permit faster, allowing them to open their bank account faster, their land scouting easier, that kind of stuff, immediately people will start pumping in money. Yeah. And then the transaction can go on. It also boosts local economy immediately, just like MM2H. If let's say now you say that you can start applying for it, and this is the process to apply for it, and a very clear direction of what kind of properties you can buy, what kind of things you need to put in here, and maybe if you
FD
put in, maybe if you put in 3 million ringgit immediately, then you get a fast track, or something like that. Then what happened is that at least the makcik at the roadside, even selling curry puff, would get more benefit in terms of the breakfast. Breakfast share,
New factories that are opening up.
Right.
The people nearby would buy those things, and then tourism sector will also be more vibrant and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so I think that these are some of the things that needs to be faster because the other day I was just reading about this particular article as well about how sometimes government, if they are not fast enough as an overall system to actually provide for even approval of things, it's not going to be great. Like for example, TSMC recently opened 2 factories in Japan. Japan. So I was reading about it, and then they say that although the CHIPS Act actually came out in the US, and they want TSMC to go and build their factory there.
They're building one, but they had some trouble. That's why they
so
shifted to
other
other
places. They
places.
said it's taking so long for them to actually even get the subsidy to get approval. But Japan, right? Recently, done. That's all. Now they are talking about second building already. So Japan is enjoying the economic boom suddenly out of the blue.
Yeah, and we hope that here in Malaysia and also in Southeast Asia we can have those kinds of good news moving
That's
forward.
Right. Yeah, and I think to a certain extent, I've heard stories that currently right now some of the government processes are much more faster than before. But I think there needs to be.
There's always room for improvement.
Yeah, there's always room for improvement. A more concerted effort, like what you say, right?
Yeah.
In terms of bigger scale, right? Aside from all this, at the bigger scale level, is there any way that we can actually roll out more bigger scale policy, like maybe in a way where, like, let's say raising the interest rate while not affecting the people that much. Is there such solution?
That one not possible lah, because everything there are trade-offs and everything lah.
Right.
You raise interest rates, definitely your mortgage interest servicing is going to go up. It's all about balancing lah. And I think if let's say the government can do what we spoke about just now, and others have also recommended this. I mean, Khairi and Sharil from Keluar Sekejap, they've also listed down similar suggestions. It's incumbent on the government to take in this kind of feedback and then to work on a whole of government approach, not just the ministries, but also Bank Negara, have a good comm strategy, have a good policy announcement strategy, and hopefully, I'm cautiously optimistic. If this can get done, then the ringgit will have a more positive trajectory in the second half of the year.
I was wondering, right? I got a little bit excited with this topic because usually when I talk about this, right, we talk to our staff and everything. But this is the first time that I'm talking to someone with a proper qualification in this area as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So there was one idea that was toying in my mind, right? I was thinking to myself, like, we know the root cause is the
external, some external,
factor,
some internal. Yeah.
Interest rate ultimately has to be dealt with, right? If not, then you wait until US drop interest rate. That's another part.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, if let's say Malaysia were to say that they will increase the interest rate marginally, but at the same time roll out certain policies that allow people who are in need to actually get a lower rate kind of thing, right? Like, because that's what we did even during COVID time, right? You have a lower rate loan, and stuff like that. Yeah. If that such thing can be implemented, I think it would be good, because for people with a higher income, the ability to boost that ringgit, it's good for them.
Yeah.
And it's not too big a difference for them, but for poorer family, then it's gonna be difficult.
Yeah. So I won't use that approach because even when you talk about the loan moratorium during COVID, right? It was given blanket. Whoever wanted it could take it. If let's say you wanted to opt out, then you can say you want to opt out, right? It wasn't means tested. Meaning, you cannot say, oh, just because you're earning more than 10,000 ringgit, I don't give you the loan moratorium. You could not do that.
Correct.
Right? So let's say for this kind of lower interest rate for people who it's lower incomes, right? It's not so doable from a practical and even from a legal perspective, lah.
Right.
So I won't focus on the interest rate part. What I would focus on is the targeted subsidies. That one is something that the government can do, on a targeted basis. If you don't earn so much, then we'll give you more when we roll back the petrol and the diesel subsidies. And that, I think, could be one of the things that the government can do to reassure the markets that there is a plan for greater fiscal, room. And also for putting Malaysia on a firmer fiscal foundation.
Right.
Yeah.
So it seems that a lot of all these actually hinge upon the ability for government to create that unified information system to be able to roll
they have to come up with the policy.
Right?
They have to come up with the policy design first. They have to come up with the policy parameters and then communicate that in a very strategic and also comprehensive manner.
Right.
Yeah. So I think this one we can talk about it a lot more. Since it's an ongoing topic, we'll come back to it. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, and we'll try to answer that in the next episode. But in the meantime, we're gonna take a break and then come back and talk about the Parliament session. Be right back.
Hey everyone, just in case you're wondering, how do we stay updated to news every day? Well, there is an easy way. We actually have a newsletter called the Coffee Break, where we help you to stay updated to the latest news in Malaysia and around the world in just 3 minutes. So every day there will be a newsletter sent to your mailbox directly to help you get smarter. Do check out the Coffee Break via the link below.
Welcome back to the Are We OK podcast, the podcast that talks about public policies in ways that are relevant to you, the man and woman in the shopping mall and on the streets. Okay, new Parliament session just started this week. You guys will be listening to this next week. Peter, did you listen to any snippets from the Agong speech?
Yeah, it was quite exciting. I think
our new Agong?
Yeah. I was like quite
inspired,
hopeful and inspired, and some of the things that he said that I felt like, wow, very daring, very very straightforward, and without giving face to
the MPs, is it?
MPs,
like what? Like what? Give an example.
Like he literally went to this mode and he said that some of the things that some of the behavior that I've seen the MPs did before
Makes
I
me
will
feel
feel
memalukan.
memalukan, right? Yeah, to even walk in this hall, right?
Yes,
I was
correct,
like, whoa.
That's a firm warning.
Yes.
And I think he also said after that that he gives the carte blanche, the room for the speakers to suspend MPs for the maximum of 14 days if they say things that are sort of like not in line or may be an insult to the reputation of the August Hall, which is the Dewan Rakyat. So so that I think was quite interesting. Then the other thing that I thought was probably the most significant thing from the King's speech is that he will not entertain any sort of like proposals or any moves to want to change the government.
Yeah.
He said, look, if you want to fight it out, duke it out, do it at the next general election. Don't try any of your funny business in terms of wanting to change government. Like maybe what happened before.
Yeah.
Did you find that to be something reassuring?
Yes. I thought he did a very good job in terms of that. But I think soon after that, there was an MP who challenged it.
We'll talk about this MP. I think he's a learned person, Taqiyuddin Hassan, the MP for Kota Baru, who used to be the minister in charge of law. And what he said maybe is technically correct. He said that it is possible still for the government of the day to lose confidence in Parliament. Let's say enough people or enough MPs choose not to support this government. Technically, it's still possible. But I think practically speaking, given the fact that there are so many, this government commands more than a 2/3 majority, especially with a few Bersatu MPs supporting the Prime Minister now, the likelihood of that happening, especially after what the King has said, is almost close to zero. So we can look forward to this government having the next 3 to 4 years of policy stability and implementation. But at the same time, there are a lot of things that the opposition can do in terms of playing its role as a good check and balance. Not just highlighting certain policies with regards to, let's say, the weak ringgit, maybe areas, but more importantly, provide, value-added alternatives and suggestions to the government to show the people that if let's say it were ruling as government, maybe later on if they have the opportunity, this is what they would do differently, and to give confidence to the people that we have effective and also responsible opposition.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was lacking in the politics circle, if I were to say it, is instead of just fighting emotionally, I thought it would be good if, let's say, they were to give alternative policy proposals and have it so well thought out, right, and so well planned, right, that when you present it, it's hard to reject you, that kind of.
Yeah, people on both sides will say, that makes sense. And even the public will say, that makes sense.
That would actually automatically win you a lot more confidence for the next general election.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought like that would be great, because you also pose up the challenge for the existing government to pick up their game and do a better job at it.
Yeah, so, you brought up a good point, because one of the important things that the King said was don't focus or don't play up 3R issues, right? Race, religion, and royalty. And I think this is something that, as politicians, especially if, let's say, you're in the opposition, and I was there, before, it is sometimes too tempting. And here's where I'll try and draw you behind the curtain. Start with the opposition first. Usually before a parliament session, right, there will be some sort of gathering among the different MPs, right? Whether it's opposition or government. Obviously, government, you'll have more resources. Opposition, less resources. So you meet at a maybe not so nice hotel or gathering place. And there will be some level of strategizing, whether it's formal in the sense of giving direction. You need to talk about that. You need to talk about this. Or maybe something that's a bit more looser, whereby the leader of the opposition, let's say, will set the direction. Okay, these are the 5 things that we should talk about. You all decide among your own parties who wants to talk about what. Right. So definitely, the politicians on the opposition side would have nailed down certain issues, and this is something that they will talk about in the next few days. So the leader of the opposition gave his speech a couple of days ago, and the area that he focused on was the ringgit, attacking the credibility of the government, saying that this is similar to the 98 crisis when Anwar was also the Prime Minister, which I think is not very accurate, because the economic footing of the country is nothing like what it was in 98. We're still growing. Interest rates are not skyrocketing, in the same way that it was in 1998. Yes, the currency is weak, but, there are other external factors that are very dissimilar from 1998 as well. So, but that is a clear issue that they want to focus on. You can also see some of the initial debates, the issue of Nick Allen, right? The Sharia amendments in Kelantan being struck down by the federal court. That is also something that they will talk about, and I'm sure that there will be some others, including the UNESCO proposal for UNESCO recognition for the Chinese New Villages.
Right.
I'm sure that will be something that they'll talk about. They'll talk about PADU, and the kind of response to it. Yeah. So those will be the kind of things that they will strategize on. Did you, previously, before this podcast, did you sort of like, have some sort of idea in terms of what the opposition at that time, would sort of like strategize and talk about, before Parliament?
So I have no clue. That's why I'm here to ask you quite many questions now.
Okay.
So firstly, you were in that scenario before. Yeah. So usually this particular briefing session, who are the people that will be involved? Does it mean that 100 over MPs will go into this hotel and there'll be a speech there by the head, or how does it work?
Yeah. So usually, when I was in opposition, we would have some sort of a pre-council. The MPs would meet, and then the leader of the opposition, Tam Anwar, he will say a few things, and then the respective leaders of each party will say a few things, and then it's up to the party themselves to organize their own list of speakers, and usually they would know, okay, this particular case, when we're in opposition, we need Guan Eng to come out to say certain things, right? He will lead the charge in terms of the debate. Later on, it was Anthony Loke as Secretary General who would lead the charge of the debate. And then after that, on the side of DAP, for example, sometimes we want to let Tony Pua speak because 1MDB is an important issue. When 1MDB wasn't an issue already, then we gave other people, some of the younger MPs, a chance to speak. Right, so there will be some level of informal coordination within each political party.
Right.
We in the DAP we played I think quite a good balancing role in that sense.
Right. So it's kind of like at the early of, because usually one parliamentary sitting is
for this one, the opening ceremony would be the opening session for the year would be about 1 month.
1 month, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is that you all set this month's direction, what to talk about at the big direction, then leave it to you all to, at the individual level, who speak first, later, that kind of thing.
Yes, correct. And I think for, I'm not privy to the latest developments in terms of how the backbenchers in government have coordinated themselves, but I can see that within my party, they are giving opportunities for people who can speak on some of these issues and in fact maybe even respond preemptively to some of the issues that the opposition would say. So Howard Lee, the MP for Ipoh Timur, he got up to speak on some of the responses with regards to the weak ringgit. The MP for Bangi, I think, not only spoke, but he had a very good interjection that I showed, the WhatsApp group that, for Are We Okay?
Oh yeah, that was good.
Yeah, how the other side tried to play up the Nick Allen issue.
Yes.
And in fact gave a wrong example where the MP for Hulu Terengganu from PAS came out to say that, because these enactments have been shut down, has been struck down, or even if let's say Muslims, do not fast during fasting month, they would not. No action could be taken against them.
That's right.
And the MP for Bangi, Shahrizan, my successor, came out to say that example is wrong because this is not one of the offences that was listed in the 16 and definitely not one that was struck out.
Yeah.
So this is where I think when you do homework well, you'll be able to actually respond to these issues properly.
Right. So when in a parliamentary sitting, right, I was just thinking to myself that, like, let's say the opposition, they say that these are the areas that we are focused on. So this means that that's what they're going to be talking about for the one whole month, or is it just that day itself?
So they will be speaking on these issues during the debate part, which is about 2 weeks, responding to the King's speech. Right. So this is your sort of like a response to the Tita Tuanku. Right. So you can talk about anything. Some people will use this occasion to bring up certain issues that they want the ministers to respond to with regards to their own constituency.
Right.
There's a major road upgrade that hasn't been done, or there's flooding issues, we need to address this. There may be education issues that they want to bring up with regards to the state of the schools that that are in their own constituencies, right? So the debate takes place for about 2 weeks, and then later the ministers have a chance to respond to the different issues that have been raised.
Right.
And this is also when, let's say, certain ministers that are more sort of like in the limelight, they would get a lot more opposition attention. So I anticipate for this particular parliamentary session, definitely Rafizi Ramli would be in the spotlight.
The hot seat,
Hot seat because of Padu and maybe some of the other things that he has said. And I think because he also is very vocal in terms of criticizing the opposition, they would target him, and that session, I think, will be quite interesting from the drama standpoint.
Right.
But the downside is that because people focus on a lot of the drama, the shouting and the mamaki hamun and all that kind of stuff, the insults, there will be much less time spent on the policy discussion.
Right.
Yeah, which is something that I always regret. Sometimes, when I was in Parliament, I actually want to go and ask some of my colleagues to go and shut up and sit down so that the minister can reply. Because I want to hear what the minister is going to say. I don't want to hear you again shout insults at him and shout insults at the opposition when we're in government. So, yeah, it's not something that's very becoming of the Parliament.
Yeah, but the one is hard to control, huh? Yeah,
it's hard to control, which is why I think even though the king has said I can suspend you for 14, give the speaker carte blanche to suspend irresponsible MPs for 14 days. I think it's too hard of a temptation to resist.
That's right.
That's their DNA. Yeah. I suspect. I made a sort of like a bet on Twitter. I said, is Arau or Pendang, two MPs, which of these two MPs from past are going to be suspended first, right? And the Pendang MP came close to being suspended for 4 days.
Tarik balik.
Then the speaker forgave him. But I think between these two, I think one of them is going to get suspended.
Yeah. So it looks like you can know who's who and everything.
More or less. Some of the newer guys I'm not so familiar, but these are people who have made trouble in the past. Right. And I also know that there are also similar troublemakers from the government backbencher side. But I think because they would not want to overstep the line too much, and maybe the deputy speaker may be a bit more sort of like protective over them.
Right.
So usually I think the first one to get kicked out would probably be from the opposition.
I see. Yeah. Now let's look a little bit at what the opposition leader put out as the agenda of discussion. Right. I noticed quite a few of the things that were listed there. Like for example, Nick Allen and the other one, the UNESCO.
Yeah.
This too has a strong potential to be played up as a 3R issue, right?
Yes,
and the fact that the Agong already mentitakan to say that don't play up such thing, but to bring up such issue that borderlines to it, which give a huge segue to actually going into it.
Sure.
Well, what is running through their mind? Like what's behind the curtain of that?
You see, the politicians are also quite smart in the sense that, yes, the Agong has said certain things, but they also know that the Agong is there only on day one. After that is the speakers who are there already. And it is your flaw when you're speaking, and as long as you do not say things that are factually inaccurate. So, for example, you can say, the housing minister, Ngakoming, he brought up the proposal to recognize, have UNESCO recognition for these Chinese new villages is a fact, right? It's not. It can be interpreted as something that's more provocative from a racial perspective, but it's a policy area that I think can be legitimately discussed and should be legitimately discussed, given the kind of public, response towards this particular issue. Then the ball will be in the minister's court. Right. How does the minister want to respond? And if let's say there's a better coordinated strategy, what are some of the points that could have actually been given to the backbenchers to respond to these issues preemptively? And even perhaps if let's say I was a backbencher, I would give some of the suggestions that we talked about in this program. Hey, why not get some of these Chinese, Malay, Indian villages to be listed on the National Heritage Board list of protected or list of heritage sites before we even go to the UNESCO site. And this, I think, let's say we can, we meaning the backbenchers on the government side, can make these kinds of proposals, then the minister can say, all these are good proposals. we take note of what the opposition has said, but the government is going to study all these other proposals, and we will take it to the next step, and I will initiate a discussion with the relevant agencies, from the other ministries to take this agenda forward in a more inclusive manner.
Right.
Right. So that's a way in which you can, head off these issues.
Right. Now, the way you describe it sounds more like a normal company board meeting. Yeah. But so this leads me to the other side of the thing, right? Draw me back a little bit to the curtain there, right? Is that do you miss your parliament sessions?
No, actually I don't. I have to admit this because I find that it is such an unproductive use of my time to go into parliament and then to listen to debates which may not be so policy focused, but more focused on attacking one side or the other. Of course, people can say, hey, you go there, you can do your own work, which I do. I bring my laptop in, I do my own work and stuff like that. But because you can't really focus on the things that you are supposed to focus on the policy side, when people are shouting and arguing, then it becomes a bit of a distraction. However, I think there's one area where I do miss in terms of going to parliament, which are the special select committees. Right, when I was sitting in the Finance and Economy Special Select Committee, Bank Negara would come and brief us. MOF would come and brief us on different policy areas. And because this is taking place away from the camera, people don't have to play for the gallery. They are not speaking so that they can get recorded and then later on put on their own TikTok feeds. Right, they now the speaker has banned putting two or three phones there, to get live stream yourself, right? Yeah. So away from those that spotlight, it's much easier to have rational and open discussions.
Right. So there are actually quite a lot of these kind of like top level briefing that happens during
in the select committees.
Wow.
And one thing that perhaps can be done, if let's say you could have streaming of some of these select committee briefings as well, it won't reach a very large audience, right? But people can see that, hey, actually there's another side of the MPs that is capable of discussing these things in a much more level-headed way.
That's right.
But of course, the downside to having these kind of proceedings live stream is that once you stream it online, then politicians will have a different incentive already. They may want to politicize some of the things that they say in these briefings, and also the ministries that come to brief us, the people that come to brief these kinds of special select committees, they may not be so forthcoming if let's say they know that this is going to be open to the public. So it's not easy.
Sensitive information that may not be too mature to be shared with the public yet, right?
Yes, maybe misinterpreted in a wrong way when it goes out into the public sphere.
That's right. Yeah, so I was wondering to myself, right, because as a right guard, all we see most of the time is the very Maki Hamun, or the sensationalized drama moments, tarik balik, those kind of moments, right? I was wondering actually, the whole day sitting there, how much of it is actually productive, where you're really, really discuss important issue, where like maybe the people under the KSU, people who are really in charge of running the thing, to stand there and be answerable of what is happening and what's not.
So the KSUs don't get involved in terms of the actual parliamentary sitting in day one. Don't get involved means that they are not there to answer questions and all that. But they get involved in the sense that their officers, the ministries' officers, they are the ones who prepare the answers to the questions, right? So whether it's answers to debate issues that are brought up or answers to the parliamentary questions that are asked every morning from 10 to 11:30 a.m. and also the minister's question time and also the prime minister's question time. Right. So that process is ongoing. Some of the answers I think are important, in terms of alerting the public certain updates, certain policy sort of like adjustments and updates. But for me, I think all of this kind of information, you can actually get it without going to parliament itself, because you can hear it, you can listen to it live, So if the only advantage of being in parliament itself as an MP is that for certain issues, you may want to ask additional questions. So let's say, there's an issue that you care a lot about, let's say the PISA scores. You know that there's going to be a parliamentary question on that. You make sure that you are there to stand up, so that you are called, and then the speaker would
I see.
call you to go and ask supplementary questions.
I see. Last question, right? How do you actually decide what are the priority of issues to be discussed? Because as a rakyat, very often when we look at parliamentary sitting, I guess there are quite many out there who are actually wondering like, hey, why not you all discuss the more important stuff instead of all this? But I think the chances of most of the time discussing the, at least from a sensationalized news feed perspective, it seems like we can't make sense of how they actually prioritize the matters to be discussed. So actually, how does it work?
Okay, so in terms of, let's say, media coverage, the media will cover the questions that are being answered by ministers in the morning, the 10 a.m. to 11:30, because there will be some new information that will be revealed, and then they will take some of this and then make them into news items, and then that can be sort of like shared in the larger media consumption ecosystem by people who are interested in these issues. That's one way. But the thing is, when it comes to the policy responses, when it comes to the minister or the deputy minister responding to the different issues that are brought up by the MPs, right? By that time, that's in the afternoon already. Actually, very few reporters cover it.
Right.
Unless it is the Prime Minister or the Finance Minister. Then it becomes much more important. So usually in the order of reply, after all this debate is over, right? You can see there will be a schedule that will be given. The ministers or the deputy ministers of each ministry would be asked to reply, and then the last person to sort of like sum it up would usually be the Prime Minister,
right?
That will be some subject of media coverage. But for all the other replies, right, actually the press doesn't cover it. Even if, let's say, there may be important things that are highlighted.
Right.
So what MPs do these days is they get recordings of themselves speaking, so that their voters can know what questions are being asked, what is the mix between national questions and also constituency questions. And then after that, they will make sure, or at least I hope that a number of them would come into the hall to listen to the replies that the ministers would give to their issues. But here I will draw you behind the curtain again. A lot of the time, MPs just bring up certain issues. They are not there when the minister is responding.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I ask AD, you don't bother
yes.
Then ask for what?
Correct. Sometimes I'm flabbergasted because sometimes I'm sitting in the hall because I know I've asked these questions from 3 ministries. When this minister is replying, I make sure that I'm there. So then the minister will say, oh, okay, these are the questions that have been asked. Soalan ni telah ditanya oleh YB tempat ni, YB tempat tu, tapi mereka tak ada di dalam dewan ni. Saya minta kebenaran speaker untuk tidak menjawab soalan. So if let's say the people who ask the questions are not there, the minister has a right to say, okay, I won't answer these questions because they're not here. Ask the speaker's permission, and the speaker will give that permission.
Oh, wow.
Right. So to me, then it becomes like, it's like are you really genuine and serious about asking those questions? Because when you ask those questions, you know which ministry you're asking to. So when the ministers are responding, you should be there. And also because for most MPs, except for the ones in KL, the backbenchers, right, they are coming in specifically for the parliamentary session from other states. So the least they can do is to be in the hall when the ministers are replying.
Right. So, because going to parliament, you get allowance, right, at the time?
Well, you can sign in the morning, you leave, after that you still get your allowance, yeah?
Oh, like that one? Oh, not that like have to check in, check out.
No.
Also, I can go there for like 2 hours, go Yamcha with my kawan-kawan.
Yes,
and
correct.
Yeah, because I know not everyone sits in there. So
Yes. Yeah, you can do that, So, I mean, I have to admit, sometimes I will go in, I will check in, stay in for about 15 minutes because I don't have any questions to ask in the morning, right? I will just go and then go to my room, monitor the situation online and also on the TV, and then I do my own work.
Right.
So I will go into the hall only when necessary.
Right. Okay, that's very interesting. I'm thinking to myself, it'll be really interesting if one day you can bring us to the parliament itself.
Sure, but in the meantime, when the ministers are responding during this parliamentary session, please take note.
Yes.
Go and see who are the ministers, who are the MPs who ask questions but never show up for the ministerial reply.
Now I start to realize that the afternoon session is actually more exciting.
No,
although not as sensationalized, but actually more exciting in terms of
more important from a policy perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because like that's actually the answer.
yes, that's where the substantive, answers and also hopefully the debates,
That
response.
could have been much more. It could have been a much more productive session post that.
Correct.
You
And,
know,
and again, let me draw you behind the curtain. In cases where, let's say, there are no sensationalist issues being brought up, like the UNESCO thing and all this, if let's say you want to have a genuine debate and discussion with the minister, right, and the minister is also serious about policy, the minister will be willing to engage with you and give you time to ask genuine questions when he's replying.
Right.
Yeah,
so
but
there are cases like
yeah,
that.
no, I had a pretty good sort of like rapport with Tunku Zafro when he was the Minister of Finance, and he gave me room to ask many substantive questions that needed to be, explained in greater detail when I was opposition.
Right.
Yeah. So but it has to be done in good faith. If let's say you are seen as a rebel rouser right from the beginning, when you stand up, the minister is not going to give you room.
Right.
Yeah.
I
So
see.
hopefully we can move towards that direction, but
Yep.
it's not going to be easy, lah.
It's okay lah. At least from what I've seen so far, we are not the only country that does that. I see some countries actually even fight.
Yeah. We don't want to get to that stage, but
we're not as bad lah. Huh?
we don't want to compare
Not
to the ones that are worse than us. We want to compare to those who are
become better.
better so that we can move towards that direction.
If there's a country that you think has a very well conducted parliamentary session, which country will you think it will be? And then we can probably go and watch a little bit and get a gauge of it.
Okay, not surprisingly, the answer is actually Singapore. Because why? When even the opposition, when they ask questions, it's about substantive issues. And then when the answer comes, it's on substantive issues. And because Singapore doesn't have a culture of this kind of rabble rousing, and the voters themselves do not appreciate this kind of rabble rousing culture, it may be very boring, those sessions, but the discussions are civil, the discussions are substantive, and I think that is the kind of ecosystem that I personally feel would be more beneficial to the rakyat, and also the rakyat would be able to have a better impression of their MPs, not as people who go into the day want to shout at each other, but to have these kinds of substantive discussions, and in a way to make politics in Malaysia less sensationalist, more policy oriented.
That's true. Actually, now that I think of it, I barely seen a clip of them shouting. And most of the time when you get their recordings, right, it look almost like they are doing a well-prepared speech to public.
But all the speeches are mostly prepared.
But what it means that it's not like an emotionally filled kind of thing. It's more like a proper like board meeting. Board meeting.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean,
Wow.
that's to Singapore's credit. Of course, there are certain things that they perhaps could improve on maybe Parliamentary Select Committee to be more inclusive, to raise more substantive issues. But yeah, I mean, that's a separate discussion.
Right.
Okay,
That's
so with that, I think probably no more issues. We've gone on for quite a bit on these two important issues on the ringgit as well as Parliament. So we'll stop this episode for now, and then we'll be back again for the next episode the following week. So stay tuned. Look forward to more substantive discussions on
That's right.
Parliament moving on.
See you guys next week.